Hey folks, welcome to MLR Kickoff. Dan Power with you alongside the Professor Pete Steinberg. Big show, huge show coming up. We will review New England Austin. It was the top of the West versus top of the East going on a Saturday night at Bold Stadium. We'll bring in Tavite Lopeti. Let's try that one again. Tavite Lopeti. There you go. I got it eventually. Lucky I'm not calling games anymore, Pete. I would have mumbled that one a few times. The Seattle Seawolves and USA Rugby star will join us. We'll have him in the show here in just a second. The Professor's Breakdown is back and live this time. No more pre-recorded Pete Steinberg, which is good. And then we'll jump into all the games coming up this weekend. But first, Pete, both of us on the road. A bit of a rarity. Usually one's at home, but I'm down in Texas. You're in Florida. I'm actually going to cross you in the air in a couple of days as I head to Florida, so I'll wave as I go past. But how you doing? I missed you last week. Aaron didn't. He was so happy you weren't here. He was saying horrible things, but I missed you.
Thanks, Dan. I missed you too.
Did you watch the show?
I have not watched the show yet.
Did you listen to the show?
I have not listened to the show yet.
Just trust me, Aaron is not nice.
Should I do or should I not do it, Aaron? Should I listen to the show or should I not listen to the show?
You should listen to it.
I will listen to the show. So it's just been crazy. We were in Vail skiing for the weekend, right? Caught a few of the games in secret at night, and then got up at 6 a.m. on Monday morning to drive the family back. So kids dropped off at daycare, Yvonne dropped off at work, and then jumped on a plane and flew out to Orlando, which is why I look like this.
Yeah. Well, I felt MLR kind of embraced the March Madness because they put every game on at the same bloody time.
Oh my God, every game was on at the same time.
I don't know which one to watch. But I did watch enough of this one to let you speak intelligently about it. New England. Okay. At Austin. Now, this hyped up matchup, Pete, coming into this one. New England strategically put Bodine Walker onto the bench, maybe looking towards this week and Rugby ATL. It doesn't seem to affect their performance. Harrison Boyle steps in at 10, has a pretty solid game in that position, but a few other players, Doug Fife in particular, really had a great game there, and they come away with a road win over Austin at Bold Stadium. Dig into it for us.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is it's interesting, right? Because Harrison Boyle was their starting fly half last year before Bowden Wacker took over. So this isn't like necessarily what you would see as a normal backup. But I think what's interesting for me about this game and is Austin's challenge to score. Right. And they took a couple of penalties instead of going for the line. They play a pretty direct game. So if you have a look, they had no line breaks. So the Free Jacks defense was very good. They had 7 offloads. The Free Jacks had 14. And I think that they made some just really, really interesting choices and really struggled to hold on to the ball. Right. And so I think, if we remember, like maybe there are these like guild teams, right? So if you remember last year, LA started really hot, scored lots of points and people caught up with them. It feels like Austin did the same thing, came out of the gate, scored lots of points, but people are really beginning to like pick up on that. So I thought that was interesting and, some choices that they made. They struggled a little bit with the referee, and I thought the Free Jacks were really, really tough. Only 6 penalties against the Free Jacks, and that allowed them, I think, to sort of really manage the game really effectively.
Yeah, there was a little bit of controversy around some of the refereeing in that game, but
yeah,
I don't think coaches and players, 80 minutes is a long time. And for me, I see the value of Julian Dominguez and the influence he's had on Austin. Mark O'Keefe had another really good game, went off rather early, actually. So I'm not sure if he picked up an injury or not, but that the Dominguez factor, if you talked about no line breaks, well, he makes his own line breaks. He gets good go forward ball. He always seems to bump off a tackle or two. Just causes a disjointed defensive line that then Mac Mason can attack on a little bit more fluently. I think you're just seeing like similar to last year. They just didn't have that circuit breaker style player in their backline last year. Dominguez gets brought into that role. He's out and they kind of regress back into the 2021 Austin attack. Just goes to show the value of a guy like Dominguez in Major League Rugby. So hopefully he's back and healthy.
I think that's right. And I think that the Free Jacks actually do have a number of those players. Just like you said, Bowden Wacker was on the bench, and he's one of those players, and they can afford to put him on the bench because they got people like Fife. So I think I think that the Free Jacks have more game breakers, and that's what gives them a little bit more flexibility. And I think you're right about Austin. They certainly had to work very, very hard to score in this game, and it's going to be interesting to see what they can do to be able to get a little bit more open in terms of their scoring as they go through the season.
Yeah. And it'd be remiss of me to not mention New England played really well. They are by far the most improved team from last year to this year. And they were a good team last year. They weren't scrubs by any stretch, but defensively, their structure and the way they're playing together just looks like a phenomenal culture up there in New England. So we'll talk this week a little later. This week sets up now as this taste. This could dictate what happens on the East for the rest of the year. So exciting stuff.
Well, I think this upcoming game that we'll keep talking about but not talking about is definitely one that's interesting for us.
Well, let's not waste any time. We have an amazing guest coming up. Tavite Lopeti out of Seattle, obviously went to St. Mary's. Big, as well as he's done, I just don't remember hearing his name a lot coming out of college. He sort of exploded onto the scene at the Rugby Town Sevens, and then with USA Rugby, and now with Seattle. So, Pete, strap yourself in, because this was probably one of the most humble and open interviews I think we've had on MLR Kickoff. So an absolute pleasure to have this young superstar on the show. So let's bring him in now, Tavite Lopeti. All right, joining us now is Seattle Seawolves and USA center, Tavite Lopeti. Hey, big fella, how you doing? Thanks for joining the show. 3rd overall draft pick. What an honor. And now for you, what an honor to be in the presence of not only the professor, but the Panther on MLR Kickoff. How you feeling?
I'm feeling good, man. Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, mate. First season of professional rugby, you come out of the St. Mary's program, which is run extremely well in the collegiate scene. But first year of professional rugby, how have you adjusted to life in Seattle and your Seawolves teammates?
It's actually pretty easy. I got a bunch of good teammates, especially veterans that have played all throughout the country, some in Super Rugby, some in Prem. And it's, I came in with a mindset of just trying to learn from everybody as a year one mindset. So I'm just taking that in every day and trying to enjoy it while I can.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your first year. We're looking at some of the footage there. Big Ross Neal. I've never seen a man run that fast because he doesn't want to get tackled on the turf. But who have you kind of gravitated towards inside the Seawolves? Who's kind of been your mentor, taken you under your wing for your first year?
That's kind of hard. I mean, a lot of the guys, we came in and we meshed in pretty well. I've known AJ probably longer, so I'm a little bit closer to him, but probably some of the dudes that I've been picking a lot at is Dan Creel and Ross.
Big Ross Neal, there you go.
Big Ross Neal. So, that was my main goal, was just ask as many questions as I can and just soak it all in.
You've had an amazing couple of years in rugby. You got to play against the All Blacks, obviously played for the US, now a professional rugby player. Talk about when you first knew that you were going to be good at rugby. When did that kind of happen? How did you pick up the sport, and when did you know that you were going to be good?
To answer your question, pretty honestly, I don't even look at it like that. I mean, I got introduced to the sport by my dad in 2012, my freshman year of high school. I was a basketball and football player. And then, I needed something to do over the spring for my off season to get ready for football. So my dad had a friend who coached in the Peninsula area, which was pretty close to me. And, since then I just fell in love with the sport. So I think probably 2016 areas where I wanted to start focusing on rugby and just dropped everything else, football and basketball. And I want to say 2016 is where I wanted to take things and see how far I can go with it.
And tell us a little bit about your first time you were called up for the US. How did you find out, and how did you react?
That was actually a pretty good surprise. I was in the middle of Rugby Town, We just finished the Rugby Town tournament, and that was my first time going in there in Glendale, Colorado. And the week prior, I was in National Sevens, Club Sevens in Seattle. So I did that, and then went straight over to Colorado. And I was kind of burnt out towards the end of the tournament because Rugby Town was actually pretty good. But I got the phone call from Gary Gold and asking me, get invited to camp. And I had to let him know, I got to talk to my dad real quick because I haven't been home in like 2 to 3 weeks.
oh, come on. What did your dad say? You called him up and you're like, Dad, is it okay if I go?
Yeah, so I was like, I called him, first dude I called, and I asked him, I was like, yo, I just got calls from the head coach of the Eagles. And they invited me to camp. Is it cool if I stay over here for another week? And he kind of just looked, it was FaceTime, so he kind of looked at me and he was just amazed. He was all like, that's probably like not the smartest question you've ever asked me, but go ahead and stay you stay in Glendale for as long as you can and come back home when you take care of your business.
He's like, no, son, you got chores to do. Get home.
Yeah.
Never heard of him.
He kind of just struck me off. I was kind of telling him like, yo, I'm homesick. I haven't been home. But he was just like, nah, you got to take care of business. So that was that. So as soon as he said, he gave me the green light, I got back to Gary Gold and I told him, thank you for having me on board. And I was just ready to get it going from there.
I have to, like next time we talk to Gary, Dan, we should ask him how many players, when he said, hey, you're coming to the Eagle camp, how many players have said, I've got to check with my dad?
There's probably
not that many players. They're like, let me just check with my parents to see if it's okay. That's a great story.
Yeah, that was pretty crazy. I had to check in with my dad first before I gave him like a solid answer. So that was pretty funny.
Well, honestly, it says it's a character question too. It says a lot about you and your relationship with your dad. So I take the positives away from that. Mate, let's talk about that experience, the All Blacks experience. When you talk about like a test debut, talk about the deepest end. It's not even the deep end of the pool. Like they took you to the Mariana Trench and threw you in there. But you excelled. I was talking to people during the game and going, but he's not only the best player for the USA by far, he's one of the best players on the field in this game. Like, where did this kid come from? How is your mindset going into that game? Because to me, it seemed like you didn't care who they were. You just played your game and went out there and dominated. Was surely there was some nerves, Tavite. Like, give me something here.
To be honest, I wasn't even nervous. Like, genuine. I think that's just something that I've grown and, developed from being at St. Mary's. We pride ourselves in just being able to go into a game every weekend and, being as calm and collective as possible. So, going into that game, I was pretty relaxed. I felt pretty normal. I had some phone calls with some of my buddies from St. Mary's. They're like, you going up against the All Blacks tomorrow. How you feeling? And you must be nervous. And I was like, nah, actually, I just finished going over my rows. I'm waiting for dinner to, be ready. I'm just chilling. But it didn't really hit me until like the morning of, when we started doing our last minute preps and our coaches is telling us like we about to perform in front of like a huge, they asked us, it was like, have you ever played against 5,000 people? And I was like, no, not really. It kind of just kicked in from there. So, the blood started flowing, but I had some music in, just relaxed doing my pregame routine and, went in there with my best intentions. And, the scoreboard wasn't too fun to be a part of, but, it was an experience of a lifetime though, for sure. Like I enjoyed every bit of it.
I'm going to say, were you more nervous to call your dad after the game when he saw the scoring? He's like, you went away from home for 4 weeks for that? You're grounded.
Nah, he was the first dude I went to after the All Blacks game. He's a huge supporter of mine. Since I got into the game, he's the one that introduced me into it. Yeah, man. So as soon as the game was over, I went to the sidelines trying to find my dad in, at FedEx Field. Through some traffic, I finally found him. And, it was a good moment, though. He was proud of me. And, that's something that I always look forward to do, just making my parents smile.
That's awesome, mate. And did you get a chance to chat with any of the AB players afterwards? Any words of encouragement? Did any of them find you out and chat to you after the game?
I was trying hard not to be a fanboy, but, I was trying to be as professional as possible. But I did chop it up with Anton Leonard-Brown, who has a huge influence on my game, especially. So I got to chop it up with him and a lot of the other players. But, they were just some normal guys. They didn't think too highly of themselves, which was really cool. It kind of hurt to my ego, though, after they gave us a whooping like that. But they were really chill after in the shed. So, there's some good dudes.
You went from the All Blacks into the MLR season. Obviously started strong, Seattle. Much better season than last year. Talk a little bit about what's been challenging for you in the transition into becoming a professional rugby player.
I'd say my biggest challenge right now is just trying to find a balance off the field. Because I'm still trying to learn. This is my first year in the league, trying to figure out, how to be this professional athlete and, be the best version of myself. But I've also had some good mentors, who told me, you got to take care of yourself outside of the field. Because, if you're not doing right at home, how do they expect us to be coming onto the field and being 100% on there? So I think a big focus for me and work on is just trying to stay as balanced as I can off the field and on the field.
Now, is that like when you say off the field, is that, eating? Is it nutrition? Is it time management? Like, what's the challenge for you?
I think, just trying to stay so I'm pretty focused on rugby. I try to stay dedicated as much as I can, watch film, the nutrition is really big. But just being able to just have some downtime, do things that are, of my interest.
Balance.
Yeah, me. So trying to get into graphic designing, I like, I'm pretty creative on that end. I got a buddy who lives down the street from me, so he's pretty heavy into that. So I meet up with him a couple of times, meet over some coffee and, just learning a few things like that. But just little things like that off the field, help me, stay balanced, be prepared when I get onto the field.
Is that the best gritty in MLR? What do you reckon?
I don't know, man. After that, though, I kind of had to humble myself real quick. So, but that was just me having fun. I seen all the boys running over towards me, and it just something came over me. All the boys were there celebrating. So, yeah.
Who hits it better, you or Justin Jefferson? Come on, be honest.
I'm gonna have to give that one to Justin Jefferson. Man.
Look at Pete. Pete's like, I have no clue what you guys are talking about. Who you're talking about? Hit the gritty for us, Pete. Let's see it. He'll do the Charleston before he does the gritty. It's all right. Hey, let's talk about your experience in the draft. You were in Rugby Town during the draft, right?
Yeah.
When did you know that you were going to get picked? And have you stopped to think about how crazy Dallas and Houston are for passing on you? Because it seems like one of the biggest mistakes ever so far.
It was actually pretty funny because, Houston Sabercats, I was playing with Houston Sabercats for the Rugby Town, and they literally just flew out our team. Everybody just met, I want to say, a few days before. Once they found out that I was in the draft, they were all supportive. They were asking me, like, what's your plans with how you going to watch the draft? And I told them, I was like, I was just going to watch it over my phone and lay in bed. But they made it a pretty big deal. So they were just like, nah, man, we're going to set up in the lobby and you're going to put it on the big screen. We're all going to be there to support you, whether you go to Houston, whatever you land at, man. Like, they're real support. So that was really good to have because I was away from home, away from my family. As I mentioned before, I was a bit homesick, but, they made it all the more better.
Cannot believe you were playing for Houston and they didn't draft you.
Yeah, that was, it is what it is. I didn't want to dwell on it. Taylor Howden actually took care of me when I was out there with the Houston Sabercats. So huge hats off to him, man. He took care of me out there.
Tails is a good man. It's a good man. So did you get a call from Seattle, like before the pick, or did you have a good feeling leading up to the draft that you were going to land in Seattle?
I don't know. I didn't really have an expectation of where I was going to land, or, everybody's asking me, like, where do you think you're going to go? And I was just pretty open-minded going into the draft, really. My biggest goal was to just, whoever picks me up, just try to, give it your best foot forward every time you step into the field and, just develop from there. And that was all how I looked at it. I didn't look at, what specific team I wanted to go to or where I was interested in. It was more so just whoever picks me up, let's just go to work.
Now, when you look at your season, we're a few games in. What's been your favorite memory so far of the 2022 season?
I would say my favorite memory is probably training, just training in general, man. I think the guys, my captain, Ricker Harding, he lays the foundation. And, he's pretty big on, just keeping the vibes right, not everybody stressing, trying to get down on each other. But it's a good environment. and it's what I was used to in St. Mary's. So I mean, it was a pretty easy transition for me. So I would say my favorite memory really is just training with the guys, and being able to just make memories.
And then looking forward as we get into the meat of the season and Seattle pushing for a playoff spot, what's the one thing that you personally want to work on? Like, here you are, you've played a few professional games, you've played a few international games. What's the one thing that you're like, okay, this is what I need to do to be like really a world-class player?
I would say honestly, just having as much tools in the toolbox as much as possible. So, the kicking game got to be on point, passing, helping out my 10 as much as possible, making it easier for him so he doesn't stress out. So maybe if I were to choose one, just being more vocal in the 10 and 12, making sure, taking off the stress load for my 10 and being able to communicate that with my forwards and outside backs.
Well, Tavite, normally I wouldn't want to put too much pressure on a young rugby player, but you have shown already that pressure is something that you not only welcome it, you thrive in it. So I'm happy to say that you are the next big star for rugby in America, and we need more Tavite Lopetis to come through. I appreciate you joining the show. Honestly, it's been an absolute thrill to watch you play for Seattle. It's an absolute steal that they got you at 3, which sounds crazy, but keep doing you, man. Keep being you. Keep putting in the hard work, and it's exciting the next 10 years to see the name Lopeti not only in Major League Rugby but also for USA. We appreciate you coming on the show, mate.
I appreciate you guys for having me. Thank you.
There you go, Pete. And again, we heaped a lot of praise on this young kid, but honestly, I'm just so excited about the future of more of young Lopetis coming through USA Rugby right now. He's an absolute enigma.
Oh, first of all, on the field, this is a kid that, it was interesting how he talked about how he didn't have nerves against the All Blacks, because that's how he looks like he plays. Looks like he plays without any fear, just goes out and plays 100% all the time. And, this guy could be a real star. And he is exactly what Major League Rugby was built for, right? So if Tavite was around 10 years ago, he would have left St. Mary's and he'd have gone into club rugby, and he would be having, he'd have a job and he would play, and you could hear how committed he is. He may not even have kept with the sport. He's exactly what Major League Rugby's for. And Dan, could he make the 2031 World Cup? I mean, he'd be in his early 30s
now, so he'll be 32. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, he would be like a senior veteran player, and now there's the ability with MLR to actually say, I can play for 10 years because I'm going to get paid, and the pay is going to continue to go up and up and up, and you can make a livelihood eventually, and the World Cup on home soil is realistic for those kids who are 22, 23, 24 even, to say, I can pencil that in.
And so we look at these players like the Mooneyhams, right, and the Lopetis, and we say, now we can really see a pathway where this person can be competitive on the world stage. Right now, they're in an environment where they can actually, obviously Major League Rugby is going early, but I think some of these young guys may get a chance to play overseas at a higher level, then come back, right? I think that there's opportunities here, and it's exciting to see talents be harnessed by MLR.
Yeah, and what jumped out for me, Pete, is wants to add more strings to his bow. He's not ridiculous athlete, could just cruise by on natural ability. He's like, no, I'm going to add more and more. He's got a great support system around him. Sounds like he's obviously super close to his dad, who keeps him pretty humble and level-headed, and he's leaning on all that experience around him in Seattle to get better and better. And he can kick. He said, I need to work on my kicking game. Dude, he can kick. He can kick already, and lefty as well, so that's always an advantage. I hope we keep him. I don't like our chances of keeping him much more than a year or two, unfortunately. But great for him, unfortunate for us.
Yeah, but I think we're now at the point, Dan, that if he does go overseas, we can look forward to having him back, right? So we're seeing that already. We're seeing, Paul CK just came back. We're seeing some guys that are overseas that are coming back, and so I think that you always want the player to do what's best for them, both for them, their family, and their career. And I think for this generation right now, going overseas, playing for a few years and coming back as better players is a pretty good trade-off. But, also staying at home, right, and getting your home cooking and going off and playing the grind, right, which is a 10-month season overseas, not good for your longevity. It's an interesting choice, but I think this guy has a chance to be an absolute stud. So I think financially, overseas teams are going to make it worthwhile for him to make that move.
Yeah. Speaking of home cooking, can you smell what the professor's cooking? Because I can, because it's time for the professor's breakdown. What do you got tonight for us, Pete?
Well, what I've got is one of these questions, which comes up in every game, and you'll hear it from the commentators in the games, and it's really hard. But the question is to kick or not to kick. And that's when you have a penalty, question. Right? That is the question. So when you get a penalty, so a deliberate infringement, and the referee gives you a penalty, the team has lots of choices, right? So they can kick to touch, they can tap it and run. They can actually choose a scrum, not very often, but they could choose a scrum. But they can also kick for points, right, and get 3 points for a penalty kick. And so the question is, in the opposition half, is it good to kick, or should you kick to the corner and set up a line out? And I think this is probably one of the areas where rugby needs to do a lot more work with data to work out what the best choices are, because data would tell you a lot. It's a little bit like, Dan, like going on fourth down, right? So in the NFL, you see more and more people going on fourth down because data tells them that's actually the better option to win. And I think the choice to kick for touch or kick for goal on a penalty is one of those options. There's no right or wrong answer, but there are some decision-making criteria. So the first question you would have, and you see this often, the captain, they'll turn to their kicker, Dan, and what do they say?
Is this in your range?
Is this in your range, right? Can you make the kick? And as the kicker, what do you say, Dan?
Yes.
Because you're a kicker. Yes. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. I can do it. So the first question is, can your kicker make the kick? There's factors in that. There's rain. There's whether it's on the right-hand side for a right-footed kicker, which is often more difficult, versus on the left-hand side. So, the first question is, can you kick? And then it comes into this area. There's some other pieces. So how well is your line out go? Right? Are you winning your lineouts generally? Do you think you have an edge in the forwards, right? Particularly in the maul. So if your lineout's not going great, then that's going to lead you to say, you know what, I'm going to take the 3 points, right? And I'm going to kick. I'm going to kick for points. If your lineout's going really well and you've got the edge, then you'll probably lean to, you know what, even though my kick can get the 3 points, I think we've got a good shot of getting 5 and maybe 7. So we're going to kick to touch. One of the most interesting pieces about this for me in MLR is actually not that choice, but what happens afterwards. So if you kick for points, you get the 3 points, but what you do is that you have to receive the kick. And one of the areas that MLR teams are actually not very good at is what's called exiting their half. So when they receive a kick, are they able to get the ball out of their half and into the opposition half? And in many cases, a kickoff is a huge game changer. So if you're not very good at receiving kickoffs, you don't want to kick for the 3 points. You want to go for the 7 points, because even if you don't get the 7 points or the try when you go to the line out, the ball is still up in their end. The ball's not in your end. So lots of factors to think about. So when you're there, if you want to sound knowledgeable with your friends, right, you can say, should they go for the 3 or are they going to kick to touch? And maybe one other thing, Dan, to think about is in about the last 10 minutes or 15 minutes or so is how different that 3 points can be, right? So if you're 5 or 6 points up and you get that 3 points and it takes you 9 or 10 points up, then that is 2 scores that the opposition has to make. Even if your lineout is going well, even if you're not very good at receiving kickoffs, you're going to take that because it means the opposition has to score twice. So lots of factors in that decision tree for kicking for points or going for touch. And it's not clear to me that some of these teams really have that set up appropriately.
No, and you talk about data, it almost becomes like, because we've seen teams statistically dominant lose games. Like they've had territory, they've had possession and lose. So like MLR is still a little bit of an anomaly because we're still, I think, accumulating data as the league adds more and more games. But like it almost is a thing like, to me, you'd take the points because it's been shown you can keep the ball down the other end of the field. Doesn't mean you're going to win the game because teams with great territory and possession have lost games at a pretty high rate in Major League Rugby. So take the 3. But then we've also seen teams that take the 3 religiously lose. They get run down in the last 10 minutes and lose.
Right. Houston's a great example, right? Where
Yeah,
Houston would always
I don't want to throw my boy Sammy Windsor under the bus, but like there was that reputation of like, hey, he'll always take the 3. And they lost a lot of games in Houston. So I think unfortunately for them, they were damned if you do, damned if you don't. They were going to take the 3 or they were going to kick it and lose the line out. So sorry. Houston.
I think that's true. I think that's true. And also there are things like, is it going to be a tight game? If you think it's going to be a tight game, you're going to take the 3 points.
Yeah.
If you're playing the highest scoring team in the league, wet weather, there's lots of factors, but it's a really interesting piece.
So, all right. I like it. It's good stuff. Thanks for pulling one close to my heart with the kicking too. Like you've done scrums and lineouts, and I'm just like, I don't know what he's on about, but kicking I can relate to. I can get behind a 101 on kicking. All right, let's jump into the action for this weekend, mate. Kicks off. I'm going to say, is that 26? Yeah, Saturday. No Friday night again. Come on, George. We've got Old Glory taking on New Orleans. At DC, I thought they were okay against Atlanta. They showed a little bit of grit, a little bit of fight. Atlanta, obviously one of the top teams in the league, put them away. But NOLA looked flat on the weekend. They did not look great. What are you thinking in this one?
I think the question that we all have is, are Old Glory going to win a game this season? Right, that's the big question, right? They're a team that has played good in spot, like you said, showed up against Atlanta, but just haven't been able to put it for 80 minutes. This might be the game that they can pull it off. This might be the game if New Orleans don't come out. They're talented, like Nola's talented, but they haven't really played their best this year. This is going to be a tough one. I think I'm going to go with Nola, but it's going to be close, and I wouldn't be surprised if Old Glory pulled this up.
Yeah, I agree with you. I just on paper, I have to go for New Orleans. Looking at that roster, he's like, I feel like they'll click, but it's in DC.
It's in DC, right?
Old Glory, they're due for a win, so I could see this going either way. But I'll stick with you. It'll be NOLA. Moving on, kicking off at the exact same time. This is a big one. We'll jump into this a little later. It's New England at Atlanta, so. Hold on to your hats for that one on the Rugby Network. That'll be fantastic viewing. Later that night at 6 p.m., LA on the road against Seattle. We talked to young Lopeti tonight. There he is on your screen. They'll be taking on a resurgent Los Angeles, who could be out without Angus Cottrell, though, who may have picked up a knee injury in their win on the weekend against San Diego. Who do you like here, Pete?
Man, this is going to be a good game. And I think it's a really important game for Seattle. Like, they're at home. They started well. They've been a bit inconsistent. If they can't play Angus Cottrell, that is a huge loss for LA. I think this is going to be a close game. I always feel like this is a toss-up, but I think I'm going to go with Seattle. I think there's that home crowd. I think, they're showing bursts of playing really well. They've just had some errors that have taken the games away. And so I think Seattle win this game, but it's definitely going to be a fun one to watch.
Yeah, 3:00 kickoff local as well. So afternoon game. In JP Smith there, little baby face JP. He hasn't aged since he's been here. Man, what? Any tips, JP? Hit me up on Instagram. Some of hey, you look so young, looking good. I'll go against you. I'll go LA on this one. I think they're building something on the road. Again, roster will be super interesting to see who comes out of that San Diego game. That was a tough game. All right, mate. Night game, FS1, Houston at Utah. Mate, Harriman can turn on some good weather this time of year too. That's gorgeous down there in Utah. Who do you like here?
This is a tough one. Like, I was early on, I was on board the Houston bandwagon, but I'm not sure about their 9. Like, I think Smith's a good player, but I don't think he plays fast enough. And I think Utah are going to take advantage of that. I think I'm going to go with Utah. A little bit of home cooking, little bit of altitude. I think this will be a close game, but I think Utah are going to pull this one off.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you. I feel like Lance Williams is just staring into my soul there in that photo. Like I'm intimidated. So I can't go against my boy Lance. He's a great guy too. Man, God, there's some good dudes in this league. Really is. Utah at home. I agree. We'll see. I think Houston could go on a tear though. I really feel like they could do some damage if they get rolling. So I wouldn't be surprised.
But they've got to play faster.
Yeah,
like
I know.
They play. They're too deliberate. Like if you're going to use your forwards the way they do, they have to play with a little bit of speed. I think they're a little bit too deliberate. Doesn't quite work in MLR. You need to have a little bit more openness, a little bit of speed there. You can exploit the defenses, particularly out wide. I think if Houston can speed it up a little bit, they've definitely got the horses to do the damage.
Yeah, I think Houston's they're one of those teams. There's such a, and again we're getting way off track here, but they had such a high turnover. And they're so new and no real preseason that I feel like they're one of these teams that have got enough professionals that they know what it takes to play and win in professional rugby and what the grind of a season looks like. That this is almost like, hey, we're coming out of preseason mode now. Let's get after it. And I don't know. A guy like Heineke Meyer in that setup who's coached at the absolute pinnacle of the game knows a thing or two about, all those coaches who've been to a World Cup, like yourself included. You know how to. It's like horse racing. You don't want your horse winning 3 races before the big one. You got to get them in shape and get them there. And I just haven't heard panic or stress out of Houston, so I get the feeling they might be a little bit of mastery from the old wizard Heineke Meyer here, getting them prepped, and they go on a tear. So I might flip flop. I might go for Houston here. That one's for you, JT. I'm going for Houston. All right, moving on. Standalone game on Sunday, 3 p.m. Eastern. Toronto at New York. Big East Coast game. Toronto had a great away win there against Utah last week. New York getting one over New Orleans. This one at 3 p.m. on the Rugby Network. Who do you like here, Pete?
Now, this is a really good game. It's really interesting. Like New York, who came out really strong earlier on in the season, Toronto didn't, and now their trajectories are kind of going in opposite directions. I still go with New York on this. I think they're a very good team. I think that Toronto are good too. But all Toronto want to do is be in touching distance before they get their home run, which is like the last, 7 weeks of the season. Mm-hmm. Like their deal is always they just want to be 500 once they get to their home, and then they think they'll be pretty good for the playoffs. But I think New York are going to pull this one off.
I thought Ginty had done Cole Bailey wrong there by colouring in his front tooth, but then I remembered he's got the falsie, so he's pulled it out for the photo. Cole Bailey, the most Canadian man on the face of the earth. I love it. Shout out to the Butcher and Sammy Windsor. Hit 50 games for MLR last weekend. I know Sammy's been dealing with some injuries, wasn't meant to play, and at the last minute had to jump on the bench to get his 50th. But that's a great achievement for those guys. So what is it now? Four have hit 50 stats, boy. Yep. And then we got someone's running it down this weekend too. Who's our 5th?
2 weeks.
Paul Mullen?
We're 2 weeks away.
2 weeks away. Okay.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Gotta love it. Gotta love the achievements. 50 games. That's unreal. Who'll be our first 100 gamer? There's a question for you. Probably some young pup. Who's a young pup? Not me. Not Pete.
I mean, durable players. The most durable players in the league, I think.
JP Smith could probably do it. Has he been here since year 1?
No,
he came year 2, didn't he?
Year 2, but he was banged up in that year. And then, but I think the highest cap player for the Seawolves is Matt Turner right now.
No, Metcha.
He might make it. Well,
Matt Turner's not going to get to 100.
Yeah, Metch isn't making it either. Metch unretired.
Neither of them. You need someone. Like someone who started playing, maybe Cruze.
Yeah, there you go. We'll have to check what
that
Meeks
would be
is
someone
on.
Who I think
Meeks could do it because he's young and he's been there since day one with Wendell. All right, let's talk game of the week. Game of the week, East Coast Showdown. It's New England, the Free Jacks taking on the Rattlers, Atlanta Rugby ATL. This one, Saturday, 3 p.m. Eastern. On the Rugby Network. What a treat that one's going to be, free to air for everyone to watch. Pete, this is the battle for the East, you would have to say. No disrespect to New York, Toronto, or any of the other East Coast teams, but this has a feeling of maybe an Eastern Conference preview.
Well, it's interesting. Both of these teams high-scoring teams, right? So the Free Jacks have 23 tries in their 6 games, and Rugby ATL's 24, but they both have great defenses. What's interesting, Dan, is the Free Jacks had a slightly better tackle percentage, which surprised me. This is a great defensive Free Jacks team. Of course, ATL, way more dominant tackles because that's how they play. Another place where ATL have an edge is in the lineout. They are the best lineout team in the league with almost 90%, and the Free Jacks are struggling there. They only have 78% lineouts. So interesting game. The Free Jacks have a giveaway almost exactly the same penalties as ATL, so no advantage there. But that lineout, still an important part of Major League Rugby. That, I think, gives ATL the edge.
So you're going ATL. I'll go against you. I'll go New England. ATL. And for Free Jacks fans, notice there's been a couple of trades lately freeing up some space because there is a name coming back to New England. Won't reveal who it is because you want it to be something the team does, but a lot of New England fans will be very happy here in the coming weeks when they hear who New England have secured for the rest of this season. So that'll be one to watch. I don't think they're able to play this weekend, but it's getting close.
This is what Dan does all the time. Dan is like he makes me make a pick, and then he says, "Oh, by the way, here's some team news that only I know," and then let me make my pick.
You like that?
That's how you get it. Yeah,
Free
I do like that.
50.
That's exactly.
No, this will be a great game. These.
It's going to be a great game
because these two teams have flip-flopped from last year. Atlanta were an amazing defensive unit, and this year their attacks improved significantly. Free Jacks the opposite way. They could attack last year. Defense needed some work. They had a couple of mismatches, especially in that midfield. Now they're defensively extremely strong. Like you said, superior to Rugby ATL. So, man, I'm excited for this one. I will be in Florida. I might watch this on the beach. I might pull up on the beach, Pete, and watch this game.
Listen to you.
Get a little
I'll watch it on the slopes. Yeah, back up on the mountain this weekend. Although I think the I don't know if you saw, but the US women that were playing in the UK got to play Wales. It was a USA Falcons team. They won that game, and then the domestic women are playing a game in Golden this weekend on Saturday.
Oh, that's cool.
At a noon kickoff. So I might have to catch this on my phone while that game is going on. But what I will say, and I'll make this a professor promise. Both of these teams will be in the playoffs this year.
There it is. Lock it, folks. The professor promise.
Lock it down.
Yeah.
Lock it down.
It's more predictable than Nancy Pelosi's stock portfolio. Oh, Nancy. She's a big MLR fan. Nancy, Old Glory fan. She loves her some Old Glory DC. She gets out to the games all the time. So, hey to Nancy and all the other folks on the Hill who love MLR Kickoff. Just kidding. Don't audit my taxes, which just came back. And I paid my taxes, Pete. I did, definitely. Wink.
Good.
All right, brother. Been good. Be safe down there in Orlando. Good luck traveling back to the family this weekend. Enjoy the games. I'm sure the text chain will get hot during that New England-Atlanta game because we differ on that one. So always a pleasure, mate. Always a pleasure. Good to see you back. Even though Aaron, he had the knives. He was Brutus. You were Caesar, and he was jamming them in the whole show. I said, no, don't.
After my client dinner, Dan, I'm gonna fall asleep listening to MLR Kickoff so I can find out what Stats Boy did in my absence. I guess I should just be thankful that I still have a role here after what I'm sure was a star appearance by Stat Boy.
Well, I would like to think you'd be shocked to find out that I may not be exactly telling the whole truth, but I had the feeling that you're probably pretty comfortable with the fact that Stats Boy was defending you and someone else may have been jumping on. But you go enjoy the show. Enjoy your dinner. Been a pleasure, mate. For the professor, Pete Steinberg, Aaron Castro, Ryan Ginty, our entire crew, this has been the MLR Kickoff. We'll catch you next time.